Again, welcome to the Velvet section of it. Now, the key theme of my presentation today is around sustainability. We have we've had 5 years of relative stability with actually a better than inflationary trend over the past couple of years. But what we need to be really focused on is making sure that that is there for us for the next few years. Not next year, not the year after, but that this can be sustainable as we keep moving forward. Now, I've just put one quick slide there in the theme of the conference because I think it's particularly pertinent for the velvet and co-product sector. So when I think of grassroots for the velvet and co-product sector, I think of Korea and the traditional sort of Chinese medicine. That's how our industry was founded. That's the grassroots of our industry still today. And without a doubt, the green shoots are going to come from the healthy foods sector and from working with our good friends in China to increase and drive the consumption over there as well. Now, to understand where we're going to go, we need to step back a little bit. And a few people have seen this slide before. I put it up at previous conferences, and it's not pretty at all. But I think we need to understand the reality of where we've come from. Now, the only certainty in the slide is the uncertainty in terms of what we perceive we're going to get year after year. One good year was often followed by one really, really bad year. And that might be great for the traders, but it's hopeless to plan a business and budget your business. And the overall trend line was really not helpful for an industry to continue to survive. So this was up until about 5 years ago. So why was it so volatile? Well, basically, we're price takers. We're selling an undifferentiated commodity into a grey market. I put up the words up there of product stewardship. Now, product stewardship to me means, are the people valuing your velvet that you've spent a lot of time producing and a lot of pride producing, are they treating that with the same pride as it goes further through the chain? Are they proud that it's grown in New Zealand? How does it look when it reaches its final retail space at its end market? Is it just simply sliced and mixed in with Canadian product and unlabelled and marketed as Chinese velvet or marketed as something else? So this is about product stewardship. This is about taking pride in the product in the country of origin. Without this, it puts product integrity at risk. And without these key factors, we have a real issue in trying to build a brand. So let's look at the recent history and see what really differs. And it does show a different picture. And it shows a nice picture, positive picture. But I want to stand here today and say that we are at risk still within this picture. So as much as we don't want downward pressure, we don't want this to spike too quickly either in terms of returns. And the two key factors of that really is if we lead to an unattainable increase in production, or if the price rises too high and we see substitution, then it will come back. We need to manage our growth. We need to continue in this direction, but just manage it. So what sort of changed over these past 5 years? Why are we seeing this sort of stable return? Well, without a doubt, there's reducing global production. And you've just seen the slides that Professor Young has put up there in the Chinese deer farmers industry over their past 10 years. If we look back about 10 years ago or what have you with the Canadian production, we might have seen about 150 tonnes. 2 years ago, there was around about 100 tonnes. This year, I think it's about 45 odd tonnes. We look at South Korea, their production 10 years ago was 200 tonnes down to 100 tonnes. So there is a reducing global production. And that's coupled with an increase in consumption. So we're starting to see a nice sort of balance work in there between supply and demand. Healthy food is up. We would estimate that healthy food would account for about 20% of what we produce here in New Zealand. When you're talking about 80 to 100 tonnes of our market, that's quite a bit to take away from those traditional traders, and that's a good thing. There is no doubt in our minds that China is going to be the future as well, and we're starting to see that effect, and we're starting to see that effect take place over the past 5 years. And I do want to say that velvet has continued to improve its position within that sort of traditional Oriental medicine markets. And Sharon was up here talking a bit earlier about the New Zealand Link proposition, and we can see some younger Oriental medical doctors really starting to buy into some of those core brand attributes of quality and clean and green and what have you. And importantly for us, a lot of them are getting to understand that we produce to a very high level, and when velvet's removed, it enters our food chain, And these are really, really good sort of safety factors. So these types of messages are really getting home to our key markets, and that's helping build our nice base of sustainability that we need to keep going. And these key influences have led to a 5 to 10% increase in weighted average price this year. And what's really cool is this is a lift over similar price increases over the previous year. So what happened in New Zealand? I've only got one slide on this over the past year. Basically, we, despite the best words that I got from the Waikato chairman when I first came in saying, whatever you do, don't change the grading guidelines, we changed the grading guidelines. And basically, the grading guidelines exist to match like for like. So our important consumers in South Korea or in China, when they're wanting Super A, they don't want to be disappointed by the Super A that they're getting. And we all know here, we're all sitting in this room here today, and we understand that velvet is highly heritable, and there are changes happening within the way that we're growing velvet in terms of increasing maybe palmated velvet or indentation or flattening. And our markets are changing too, so we're starting to see the growth of China, and the Chinese market starts to really be quite keen on that sort of jelly tip. And recoverable jelly tip really diminishes quite quickly when you're starting to get that flattened top. So we couldn't ignore the signals from the market any longer. We needed to go out with the new velvet grading guidelines. And I truly do believe that this had some type of effect on making sure we maintain that momentum with the right direction that we're going. Exporters generally reported quite a good response in terms of the way that producers were removing velvet to make sure, even maybe a little bit earlier, to make sure they were getting that nice bulbing at the top. And there has been some anecdotal feedback that there might have been even some more regrowth around as a result. And we all know in this room what was happening with regrowth prices during the season. So I'm going to go into our core markets, and again, those guys that have heard me speak before will understand where our core markets are as determined by the velvet industry strategic intent, being South Korea, China and Taiwan. But before we go into that, I wanted just to update you on a story from the US that I went through last year. So at last year's conference, I talked about a story that broke in the American media about IGF-1 spray that was used by a golfing legend. And this really took legs, and there was huge exposure on the David Letterman show and on other such sort of well-known shows. But that story didn't stop there, and it kept on evolving during the course of the year. And late last year, we got contacted by CBS as they went to go and run a new season launch of their program, which will be well known to you. I've got a clip of the program that we'll show shortly. But the story was around a sort of a shady supplement company. But what they wanted to do was show the efforts that we go to as an industry to promote our velvet ethically. So I'll hand it over and we'll just watch a couple of seconds.
If Alabama's football players thought they could take it easy in the weight room last summer, Scott Cochran, Alabama's director of strength and conditioning, not so quietly disabused them of that notion.
Oh, that's mine. That's mine. Yeah!
I'm a kid that came in 175 pounds, soaking wet, maybe benching 200 pounds, and then squatting probably 225. Now squat 600 and bench 375, so
Baby weight.
he's the best.
Live for the pay!
When a story broke before the Super Bowl that alleged one of the NFL's greatest linebackers, Ray Lewis, was relying on a shady supplement company, the story didn't just have legs, it had antlers too. Deer antlers to be exact.
So what was in the package that you'd send to Ray? What,
Everything. Spray, tabs.
and he was on the full shebang.
Oh, absolutely. A big time.
Mitch Ross says the spray he sent to Ray Lewis and sells to the public for $100 a bottle originates in New Zealand. Deer antlers are a growth industry there, regulated by the government and promoted in videos like this.
Velvet Antler has been used extensively in Asia as an important Oriental medical ingredient for over 2,000 years.
The deer antlers grow back. The ones they leave behind are processed into pills and oral sprays. Those products are not specifically banned by the NFL, but one of their ingredients is. It's called insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1.
Okay, so what were some of the key messages that came out of that, and what were some of the key messages that millions of US sports enthusiasts heard? That deer velvet originates from New Zealand. The deer antlers are a growth industry. And this did actually create a real buzz among the athletes. And it did lead to an almost doubling of velvet exports to the US. So it was pretty cool, even albeit off quite a low base. So now on to our core markets. And why are these core markets? Well, basically you walk down the main street in Christchurch or Wellington or Sydney or in the UK somewhere and ask what velvet is, and most people won't really understand what it is. They might think it's the fluffy stuff on the outside, and they might think it's for something other than it's normally used for. But you walk down the main street in Kaohsiung or Daejeon or up in Liaoning province somewhere, and you ask what lurong's used for, or Nagyong in those markets, and many of them will be able to associate it with health-giving properties. And further than that, they'll be able to say, look, my grandfather, my father, my uncle, they'll be able to associate with people that can use it. So there is a greater understanding, a greater knowing, and we also do know that they're increasing their wealth. So it's the low-hanging fruit that we've got to be after, without a doubt. So I'm just going to go into each of the markets quite briefly here and just sort of say what type of activity that we've been up to over the past year. So there's a free trade agreement that was signed on the 10th of July and implemented on the 1st of December that brought venison from 17% duty down to 0 overnight. Processed velvet is undergoing a reduction in tariff over 4 years from 25% down to 0. And we've got an end date to frozen velvet quota. I'd just like to take 2 seconds out to be able to say that during the ratification process, that's the process from their signing on the 10th of July through to when it became law on the 1st of December, that gives the ability for local industry and for people to go back and object to this type of thing. So we invited the Taiwanese deer industry over to New Zealand, and we wanted to show them what we're about. We wanted to say that we really want to be working and sort of develop that market with them. I want to make special mention to Clackenburn, to Raincliffe and to Peel Forest for really opening their doors and being able to show what was going on. To Osprey, to Frank Griffin's group, to Chris Orange and to Andy McFarlane as our respected chairman, but basically they went back and they were really heartened with the way that we could be sort of working together, and it caused a sort of a less resistance and allowed things to go through. As part of the agreement, we also undertook to do some market research in that market, and from my perspective, I wanted to get. We live in a world, I deal with velvet market exporters, I deal with the industry up there, but I deal with quite a velvet-centric world. And that world tells us what's sort of going on out there, but it was quite a nice chance to be able to go out to consumers and get their opinion through quantitative research. So we used AC Nielsen to undertake this research, and we did some qualitative research around some sort of focus groups, some sort of senior males and senior females, so a few different focus groups, and some sort of 20 to 40-year-old males and 20 to 40-year-old females to ask their opinion. So I've just got two slides out of the massive report that was presented to us. So we asked what was the expected benefits from an ideal health supplement, and many of these people came back with sort of different. I don't expect you to read it all, but many of them came back with a whole lot of different ideal functions. But there was a definite crossover around strengthens the immune function. Next, we asked about what was the ideal health supplement that included deer velvet, and furthermore, what should that supplement look like? And without there was a clear signal that came back saying, a health supplement that contains deer velvet will be really good if it was easy to use and on the go a bit. So then when we look at what we've been doing over the past 2 years, we can see that we're on the right track, we're on the right path. When we look at the brochure, and it's really hard to read, I'm sorry, but when we look at the brochure up there, one of the key functions that we're talking about is immune function. And when we look at the types of companies that we deal with, we can see that these are companies that are operating within that sphere to take health products to an easier consumption out to our key consumers. So we're on the right path, we're in the right direction. We also asked the focus groups what do they think about New Zealand, and they see New Zealand as a real selling point. They understood it as a clean, natural, unpolluted, and we should be using New Zealand heritage. On to South Korea. So around half of what we produce ends up, there we go, around half of what we produce ends up being sold as an oriental medicine in South Korea still today. This is our grassroots. This is how the industry was founded, and possibly about 20 odd years ago that would have been closer to 85%. So we're reducing our reliance on this one core market, but it's still, and it always will remain, a very important market to us. And this market is going through a lot of pressure. So the oriental medicine sector is coming under pressure from state insurance implications. So when you go and you get a bit sick and you go and see your doctor and he'll prescribe you a whole lot of stuff, you'll go and you get prescriptions that are subsidised by the government. And in Taiwan, these are for Western-based prescriptions, not for Chinese-based prescriptions. So there isn't any type of subsidy for traditional Chinese medicine apart from acupuncture. There are stricter regulations coming in around the traditional ingredients. So all of these are causing a decline that we've been seeing now over the past couple of years, hence our looking forward to healthy foods as being the driver. And it will impact velvet, and it has been impacting velvet within this sector, but no worse than other herbs. We are very close to the Association of Korean Oriental Medicine, and they still tell us that New Zealand velvet within that segment is gaining popularity. A company that we've been working with now for a few years called OmniHerb, they have a different style approach rather than operating at the traditional Chikidong type market, where they employ a whole lot of sales reps and they proactively go out to their customers, their oriental medical doctors. They sell velvet for one of the most expensive on the market, and they grew their sales, not just their market share, but their sales this year, and they only use 100% New Zealand velvet. So we are growing within that shrinking sphere, which isn't a bad thing. But healthy, functional foods are on the rise. Even my good friends at the Association of Korean Oriental Medicine suggest that their observations are showing that healthy, functional foods containing velvet are growing at a faster rate than the decline of velvet within the oriental medicine sector. So that's good. We see large and significant companies starting to look at velvet as being a new thing within their health ingredients, and they're coming on board all the time. And these guys, there are some pretty big companies. But what is really cool that we've seen this year is we've started seeing more and more country of origin promotion. So more sort of promoting the key benefits at point of sale. And that's one thing we're quite keen on starting to see execute over this past year. That will help us build a brand and make us more sustainable. I've just got a couple of slides here on the macroeconomic sort of side of things. Many of you may be reading the newspaper that we're back in full swing with negotiations around free trade agreement with South Korea, which is really, really cool. And the idea is to try and envelope it in with the Canadian and the Australian free trade agreements, which have been signed, and they're wanting to sort of go through the process over the next couple of months, which puts extreme pressure on trying to make ours a reality, and there is a long way to go. This is one point where I'd really like to thank and say MFAT are doing their job big time on this one, because we have got a way to go. But even President Park stood up quite recently and in a speech said she wants to ink more FTAs. In New Zealand, you can't read it, but that red circle says that New Zealand was a part of those inking more FTAs. So that's a positive sign of a strong desire at that very senior level. The economy, these are just a couple of clips out of a newspaper, out of probably two leading newspapers over the past couple of weeks, just showing the economy's on track. So that's helpful to understand about our fundamental indicators as we're looking forward within our core market. So on to China. We know that the rising economic wealth in China is leading to increasing consumption generally and in luxury goods, and that's definitely the case for health products and including velvet, as people are turning to more well-being, healthy sort of alternatives or better quality of life. So that's a good thing. But again, I can't say a good thing without chucking a caution in here. And personally, I think this is a pretty big caution when we have a look at what's happening over there, particularly at the wholesale level. I made a comment in Stagline the other day about this, but I do want this to be a bit of a message to take home, because this is something around product integrity that you must be working closely with your buyer as they will do with their market, rather than as pressure comes through at the wholesale end to buy more velvet, that we make sure loyalties stay in place. Because there is a proliferation of new factories being set up right now in China. In the past, we've presented about this really cool city called Deer City, or Xifang, in China, that's had quite a bit, or massive amount, of government money going into building new factories in this 8 square kilometre industrial park. And the focus of that industrial park is on drying velvet and co-products and what have you. And I go along to the Xifang place and I go, wow, where are they going to get all this product from? Well, across the border is another town called Xuanyang. And Xuanyang is it's another Xifang in terms of the development that's going through there. Changchun Daily, about a month ago, released an article saying there is something like a 20 million New Zealand dollar investment by the government and with building up to about 30 different factories going on right at the moment in Xuanyang. So what this could lead to is an increase in wholesale demand. But if that is not matched by retail demand, we could end up causing a really big bubble that could burst and could take us down. So short-term things could look good, but it could put us at risk long-term. So again, I really implore you guys to be working closely with your buyers and to making sure, because they have the key contacts, they've been building up their markets within their key markets, and we've got to make sure that that continues more than ever over the coming season. Now, Amy just asked me if I could explain some of these things in a bit more detail. Down here is a photograph of the new factories, and apologies, but you can't see that, but there's cranes going up there showing new development in Xuanyang. All of these are from Xuanyang, not Xifang. This is a new retail outlet that's selling deer products and deer co-products. And this is inside a retail outlet showing deer products. And that's not tomato juice, but there's deer blood up there, which you can just pick up like a can of Coke, I guess, and drink it as you walk along the street, probably a bit warmer. And there's some velvet that you can buy or chew on a pizzle from the pizzle wall. But so these things, they're real, they're out there, and it's important to understand what's happening. But I do put this down as a bit of a concern. Right, getting toward the end, but in China we are having market access challenges, and this is one of the key focuses of us. We've had some wins, absolutely. And it was really good to see AQSIQ list a couple of plants from Alliance Group. They've waited, they've been going through the process now for some time. So it is great to see that happening. But there's been many frustrations over the past year as well. And those frustrations are we need more plants to be listed by AQSIQ. And we need a better regulatory pathway around velvet. But they just don't concern the deer industry as well, as I'm sure we all can recollect the meat build-up on the wars into China and Fonterra's ongoing issues. And they don't just concern New Zealand, but the world is trying to supply China as this wealth and taste evolve. And China is trying to implement food safety programs as they want to protect their consumers, and you can understand that. So there is a process that we need to go through. But it is happening, and it's happening in the right direction. With just a final slide on China, we've got a healthy functional food project that's going, and we're looking at a gold standard for the healthy functional food registration. And we're partnering with New Zealand's leading nutraceutical company as part of their push up into China. And those people at last year's conference may remember the presentation given by the executive at that stage. It's a significant project with many hurdles, and this won't be a reality next year or the year after. This is going to take a few years for us to get right, but we need to be working on this right now. We're tailoring this product that's been created to fit with the 210 currently registered products as a healthy functional food in the market. So those registered products are compounded products. They contain Siberian ginseng and velvet generally, but every single one of those products are made from velvet from within China. So this product will be very similar, but it will contain velvet from New Zealand. And I was up with a company last week with one of our board guys, and they gave me the privilege to be able to show you the new label as it's coming through, and you can see that there is some nice branding there, because Professor Young is dead right. At the moment in the markets, there's no country of origin out there. So this one will start to have this in a few years' time, and if successful, we'll start seeing some of the functions also mentioned within this. So work plan, what am I going to do over the next while? Well, More meat plants listed in China. We've got to continue getting these meat plants listed, because it doesn't just help augment the venison industry's reliance on the European market, but it also helps unlock the potential that can happen in China. It also helps with our valuable co-products as well, as we know that there are some really good markets that exist there. The velvet regulatory pathway must be clarified. We know that velvet can go into China, but how is it sold? So we're working on that, and we'll work with our good friends from the Chinese deer industry as well. And resolve ongoing market access issues, there are other things that I really haven't got time to cover. So a brief recap, my summary slide as it were. Global production is reasonably static, I'd suggest down. There is relatively stable consumption in our biggest market in Korea, and we know that China is growing. Healthy foods are up, oriental medicine is under pressure. This season, we saw an early strong demand velvet sold and was exported quickly. And despite the strong dollar, we did see a slight improvement generally through what we received at the farm gate. Thank you.